Like this, right, and then you think, what? So that was the council's concern about that, so. I mean, that was, he was there.
Sure.
Didn't get over this area, and it would be just a nice thing to offer. He, but he was like, it's just a nice, positive.
Yeah, sure.
Any other church?
Yeah, how hard am I? He did. He was pretty little, just right around. He would tell her. And the dogs would bark.
Everybody wants to get a last round of something and start.
Yep.
All right.
So they said they were gonna put that on the website.
I had the same experience with Olivia.
It's a mountain now.
The normal
So we're doing this filming, I'm trying to put a
It's, you know, the
microphone.
cemetery. It's expand on the mountain.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said no? I always forget
Yeah.
to do north one. You're
I
right.
did.
Sounds good.
I keep thinking when he got to heaven,
Was it one of those,
saw not only
remote,
Jesus, but when he
like,
saw
little
everyone, like, Demas is in the front yard.
I'm gonna start. Okay, get a minute. Okay. All right, so I am going to officially call the meeting, this annual meeting to order. And we're going to be, so just a couple notes. The agenda is on page 2 of your annual report. That's what we'll be following. If you need an annual report, there's still some extras up here. Raise your hand if you need one. I already got one. Okay, so we're going to start actually, yeah, I called it order, but I'm not going to call it order. Pastor is going to open us with devotion and prayer.
Let's just put ourselves in a place of prayer as we begin our meeting. We thank you, loving God, for the blessings you have showered upon St. John's during the past year. We praise you for the gift of your Holy Spirit who worked in them to gather and give order to this community and who still energizes and sustains us. We thank you for the gifts of the past, for the ministry you have nourished through us, and we ask your blessing on this gathering today as we review our past year and with thoughtfulest joy and anticipation, get ready for the next new season. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray.
Amen.
Okay, so now I will officially call to order. We do have a quorum. Our quorum at this point is 10 individuals, 10 voting members. We have 10 voting members here, so we will call the meeting to order. A couple notes. What I did this year on the agenda is I did move all of the voting things to the front of the agenda so that if someone needed to leave, at least they were able to participate in the majority of the voting. And then we will go through all the reports for the year. So, Pastor, you're first up again for your annual report.
My annual report is on page 3. And just as sort of an overview, I took a look at some of the things that were happening, some of the new things that were happening, and some of the regular things that too often we don't raise up. And the first biggest new old thing I wrote that we produced is our shiny new Constitution, which was a long time coming. I remember that we thought it was a long time coming before the pandemic because we had a Constitution, but it was ancient. And it was the Constitution for a church that we hadn't been for a long time, a much bigger church, really with other priorities in mind than us. And so what had happened is that we just sort of evolved away from it and just kind of ignored the parts that didn't apply to us. Like I think it said in that Constitution, you had to have 12 standing committees. And then they listed all of them. So we just kind of evolved away from it. But that's not a really healthy or good way to be as an organization, and we knew that. And so So we finally, we had attended some workshops that the Greater Milwaukee Synod offered, and Susan Moding, who was the council president at the time, and I got together, and we had put up a framework for doing this, and then the pandemic hit. And, sometimes when I look back, I thought, why didn't I just work on that during that time? But there was something so soul-sucking about that time, don't you think? We were just trying to make it, try to hold our church together during that time. So this was such a great thing to get done, and I just wanted to point out some of the things. First of all, the mighty group that was part of this, and that was the Constitution Committee, which was Oscar Kraft, Financial Secretary Judy Swanton, and myself, and Council President Judy Rutt. And then the council also, we would move things forward, and then we would take them to the council, and so they were also part of that. And so this is what it did. One thing is that it brought us in line with the expectations of our national church, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and with our local Greater Milwaukee Synod. And it also put us, as a not-for-profit institution, there are certain requirements that we have to by law follow. And so it put us back into that. So now for the first time in at least 10 years, we will have 4 officers as required on the church council, a nominating committee in place. Our current nominating committee, committee helps to nominate people who can run for offices that will be open during the next year. And so Oscar and Judy Swanton were the nominating committee last year, and it's a 2-year term, so they're going to continue. So we have that in place already. So it just gives us this solid standing. Like, we can move forward as an organization because, we know what we're going to do. Along the way, we also have several members who have stepped into new leadership roles, which is wonderful. That's like new life coming into our church. So I have a really great feeling about that. Judy runs, our council president, also along the way has reconfigured our treasurer position, which used to be the person who controlled all the finances, and it was hard to find someone who had the skills to do that, who was a member of our church at various different times. Now that some of the duties of that person belong to the bookkeeper, which is someone that we just hired to do the regular weekly finances, and the treasurer, who sits on the council and is a member, will oversee her work with Judy's help. So that's a better and more sensible and workable way, given the church that we have now. Besides that, putting us on solid organizational ground, we're also moving forward, looking into the future. And so we're going to begin a legacy group, which is going to help us to look intelligently at what we can do to help older members who want to make sure that their wishes about contributions to the church are still respected, even after maybe their relatives are the ones who are controlling their finances. And that's kind of I know when I'm working with my Uncle Will, who's in his 90s, it's a gradual thing, and it's not the same time for everyone. But what we have found here is that if the relatives that are going to be taking care of your finances, when at a certain point you realize you cannot, if those people are not church-going people, they might not even know that you have this commitment to your church. And so suddenly, the contributions that you assume are just going to continue like they would if you were doing your own bills, they just fall off. And this has happened, frequently, and it's just not good stewardship in any sense of the word. So we're having a legacy committee, and we're talking to other churches who make it easier for people to make arrangements, and make sure that their wishes can be carried out. So Constitution is going to be a great thing for moving forward. It just puts us on the solid ground. I'm psyched. Besides that, we have some of our traditional ministries. This year we confirmed a class of 4 young people, Caleb and Eddie Rowe, Ava York, and Vivian Novobilski. You still see them serving as occasional worship assistants. We also hosted the wedding of Paul Hastings and Mary Tobolt. Was that this year? No, it wasn't this year. No, that was the last year. Right. So we had one wedding, and then we had several funerals at the end. These are the regular work of church, but it's, that's part of the holy ministry of the church, that we walk with our members, through, all the different stages of life. And so those are, when we get to the point where it's time for that, it's so wonderful to have a church to walk you through that transition. We also have reached out to our neighbors. This is some of the things that we were doing. We served lunch again for the teachers at Stone Bank School. I love when we do that and they say, why are you doing this? And I'll say, because you do holy work and we appreciate it. And they go, oh, and they're all, especially, we like to go in the fall because we know that after, I mean, as a teacher, that after parent-teacher conferences, all the teachers are kind of beat up. And then they just show up and there's like this nice lunch from, soups and from people from their neighborhood church. So it's a nice thing to do. We serve breakfast for the Hope House, which offers daytime meals and shelters for homeless people in Waukesha. We support a Cedar Springs Ranch, which offers horse therapy to children with special needs. We gathered school kits for Lutheran World Relief and snacks and reading material for the Wisconsin veterans. And that's just some of the things that we've been doing. And this is our ministry out to our neighbors, a little beyond our community. And besides all that, one of the things that I never mentioned is we continue learning and growing in our faith with 2 ongoing groups. Pastor's Bible Study, where there's a group of us who get together and study the Bible 1 book at a time. We'll spend an entire, 1.5 hour session on just a few chapters of a book, and then we just go through the whole book, and you get to see the parts of the Bible that never make the cut into the lectionary, and some of the stories, and you get a depth that you just don't get when you're always looking at little snippets. If you think about your favorite novel, imagine what it would be like if you just knew, small, paragraph long snippets, and you wouldn't get the sense of the whole. So that's one of the gifts of Pastor's Bible Study. And besides that, we also have St. John's Listening Book Club, where we seek to love our neighbors by listening to them. So we read books by authors who differ from us by race, ethnicity, gender orientation, economic level, or culture. And we've fallen into some really interesting conversations. We read serious books like Toni Morrison's classic Beloved. We read a comic book by Amber Ruffin, who's a Black comedian. We read, most recently we read The Late Homecomer, a Hmong family memoir, and we learned about the experience of the Hmong people. So it's a wonderful way to just, open up your mind. And finally, our worship services continue to be enriching for everyone who comes. And especially, of course, the difference, I always appreciate the difference that's made by our outstanding choir, led by music minister Jim Edgar, and a host of other singers and instrumentalists that we hire to join us. But I mean, they don't have to come out to this little country church, but they love to come out. And some of them come back again and again. And, so, I mean, and they just enrich us. So we, last year we did, for Easter, we did performances from the Robert Ray Gospel Mass with the cornet and drums. And then in our Christmas time, we did Meister Edgar's new arrangement of the hymn "'Twas in the Moon" that had a string quartet and the Guild Jazz Combo with us. We have made friends with Guild Jazz Combo, and they like to play with us too. And so we are in collaboration with them. And we now have they play around the east side and sometimes in Brooklyn. We should let you know when they play because they're very fun. Joe Conti is the drummer for them. So all in all, it was a great year at St. John's, and I just can't tell you what a joy it is to work here and to be part of this community and to watch us all grow together. So thank you.
Okay. Then we move on to my report, President's report on page 5. And we like to start out with Pastor's report and my report to kind of give us an overview of the year and then kind of set the stage for the year coming. So that's why we felt their report to kind of put right at the beginning. As a council, we discussed how we wanted this meeting to flow, and that's where we ended up on that. I actually have a lot of the same echoes that Pastor did. But I want to really start out as if, for everybody that knows, we did celebrate 10 years with Pastor Karen this year. And I think, I don't know where we'd be without you, Pastor Karen. I think everyone echoes that we love the sermons. She's such a warm individual. Personally, I enjoy talking to her and I feel her as a friend versus a pastor. So I just echo how blessed we are to have Pastor Karen here. So let's give her a little round. So as Pastor said, I think a lot of this year was we're still working on how do we rebuild ourselves after the whole COVID and moving forward through the scenarios. So this year really was that next building block of the Constitution and putting all the work forward on that. As we come in today, I looked at some of these and was like, I don't think we got a couple things right. There may be some small amendments to that. But we're at a good state. We've got a workable document that allows us to flex based on size of congregation, how our congregation is like. So that's good. We have the new council set up with the 4 individuals. And as we said, so there will be myself as president. You'll see the nominating committee will have a report in there. But I do want to point out, as Pastor said, one of the things this year is I'm going to be working on how do we make St. John's financially stable for the long term. And part of that is really understanding what does that role of finance mean. And so you'll see that Laureen has volunteered or offered herself to help me clarify what does that treasurer role look like? What are the things that we need to do on a regular basis? And help me document that. So that we can transition to say we clearly know what that financial person needs to do to manage our the overflow of what happens on a day-to-day basis. So I really am appreciative of that and looking forward to working with Lorraine on that. So I know she had to think long and hard about that. So please give her your support because it is, while everyone thinks it's a scary job, I don't really think it's going to be a scary job. And that's what Lorraine is going to help me do, put together to say that's not a scary job.
Yay.
So as Pastor said, also, we're going to look at and start working on the legacy giving, and then also looking at how do we as a church look for other opportunities to support ourselves financially outside of the giving realm. There are other churches that are doing that successfully. We do a little bit of that with the parsonage, but we have a lot of resources that we feel that we could utilize to help support the church on an ongoing basis long term. So we'll be starting to look at some of those opportunities this year also. The Constitution then also put together that we felt that there were a need for 4 committees after the 13. Worship and hospitality and music, which Nancy has graciously volunteered to continue, and she does a great job. So we're happy that does continue. So Nancy, thank you. The second is the property management. We're clarifying what the roles of that committee does. Working with Greg, because he's kind of tentatively said he might step into that role if we can give him a clear picture of that. So we're working on what does that mean. We'll get more on that fact. The other 2 is the nominating, which Pastor already talked about. And the last one is there will be this year an audit committee. And so I will be looking for a couple people to do a short-term audit to say, okay, as we look at the financial situations, and we look at how things process, who are we doing things right? Or do we have some suggestions to doing things a little differently? So I will be about mid-year looking for 2 to 3 individuals to kind of help us float through that. And what does that mean? The audit committee kind of floats in about every 3 years. So I think we have not really had an audit with everything kind of being running through me for a while. It's appropriate that we do an audit because I don't want anybody thinking that I'm kind of just floating things around. So we'll be doing that. And I, want to take a moment to anybody who's done anything this year. And I can't name everybody because it's just a lot of efforts. From helping in the service to singing to providing food to working outside to just being here, money, supporting everything. I know St. John's would not be the valuable community that it is. And my goal is really to make this church and this community last well into the future. As I talked in last month when I was up making a speech or whatever day that was, I can't remember. But this church is important to me, important to my family. We have long roots. My grandparents were in the church. My parents were married in the church. We all were baptized in the church, so confirmed it. So I have strong roots here, and I really would like to see those strong, this strong structure stay well into the future. So that really is my goal as we keep building things forward. So, and so that is my report for this year. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Judy.
Okay, so now we move on to the agenda. The next thing is we have the minutes from our February 5th congregational meeting, which you'll find on pages 7 to 9. Maybe you had a chance to look at them. I'm not going to have Nancy read them because it doesn't get to, unless somebody would like them read. Somebody would like them read, we can stand up and read them. But what I do need to is I would ask for a motion to approve the February 5th congregational meeting as presented in the annual report.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Who was the first?
Oscar.
Oscar?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So then we have another meeting on February 9th. We had the special congregational meeting, which,
November 9th.
yeah, November 9th, where did that go?
Page 9.
Oh, you know, pastors work on that. Okay, page 9, the minutes from the November 9th special congregational meeting, which is where we proposed and approved the Constitution in the presented state. So I am looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the November 9th, 2025 special congregational meeting.
I, Liz Tobel, will make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 9th, 2025 special congregational meeting.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now, we're gonna go on to the treasurer's report. And bear with me, this year might be I might get a little in depth this year. I'm gonna try and get to a little more understanding of, as we step into, the treasurer stuff isn't all that scary. So, so if we look at page 11, if we look at the recap from 2025, our year began with a cash balance of $16,203.08, and we ended the year with a balance of $14,049. And we'll talk about that in a minute because it's kind of important. One of the things I do want to focus on here. The income for the year, and you'll find all the details for the financials in the back of your report. So if you want to look at numbers versus report, they start on page 21. So we had, our income was over budget. We were at 103% of what our budget was. So the actual exceeded budget, which is good. The general offerings also were over by 103%, so that also is good. Part of the income that we had in was dedicated offerings were a total of 21,000, of which 11,000 that was toward the building fund. So we had the total income of 146,142. So on the expenses side, we're really doing really good. We're gonna do it. The annual expenses for 25, which is a typo in the thing. The expenses were 147,000, which was 101% of the budgeted amount. So where we really kind of got hit bad at the end of the year is that our snowplow invoice doubled what we planned to expend for the snow plowing for the year. So we had a $2,000 snowplow bill right at the end of the year. And so that is where the big flow also in the cash balance kind of went, because we had to pay out a large unexpected bill. We had a very snowy December. Moving forward, we had a very snowy January. So as we look at that, moving forward, that is going to be an issue. We'll talk about that in the budget. So what I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about the cash balance. The cash balance is really what helps us make sure that we can maintain and keep paying our bills. Okay, so just like your checkbook, you think of the church ledger as your checkbook. You have things that you deposit, and then you have things to take out, and you always want to have money in the bank. And we really always want to have money in the bank to make sure that we can pay the bills. And as we float through the year, we may have higher points of giving and lower points of giving. And that's due to that, if you are 70 and a half and above, you may direct your funds out of your retirement account in a one lump amount to the church, and then the taxes it's tax-free. So that we have several people that are in that, so we'll get large amounts in March, and then we might not get anything from them for the rest of the year. So we have to also budget through that, but we don't have, I don't think anybody really that's doing a large amount in January, so we have to kind of float through some of the beginning months with our cash flow. And then when we actually look at that cash balance, the other piece that plays into that is I'm going to have you take a look at the page 23, which is the dedicated account. And what a dedicated account is something that someone has given money to for a specific purpose. And we really don't ever spend those unless we have that specific purpose. And so ideally, those really sit in your bank account until you're ready to spend them. So if you look at the total amount that we should have remaining in dedicated funds, it's $22,000. So in a perfect world, we would have $22,000 in our checking account today, or at the end of the year. And we had $14,000. So there's a little bit of a disparity there. Now, are we going to pay all those dedicated funds out today? No. Some of them are memorials that we hold for special projects. Some of them are the music, which does flow in and out. And a large part of this is still from the building fund. So as we got money in from the building fund, we put it in a dedicated fund, and then we paid out ESPT as we had cash flow available. So this year, with the dedicated fund, building fund, we did pay off the roof, and you'll see that that was the payout at the end of the year. But we still owe the ESPT for the building fund, for them to put in their building fund. We still owe them another $7,000, which is down at the bottom, the fourth line from the bottom. So we're holding $7,000 in reserve to allow the cash flow of the congregation to maintain itself. Now, 14,000 in checking account is, in my estimation, a little low. And I have some concerns because payroll is 5,000. Every month we have at least 5,000 going out for payroll. And so, if I looked and did an average of the amount going out every year, we typically have about $11,000 going out every month. And in most months we can kind of average to that, but that doesn't always make it either. So some months we're not getting in enough to pay all the bills. And that's where we end up this year. We didn't get in enough to help pay the bills and whatever we distributed out of the dedicated funds. Because we did distribute stuff out of the dedicated fund this year. And that's why the cash balance gets lower. So we'll be talking with one of the things we do for that is we can request a short-term loan from the ESPT to say, okay, let's get us through the first 3 months of the year. Give us $5,000 to get us through the first 3 months of the year. We realistically believe we can pay that $5,000 back before the end of the year. So that may happen. I still have to run that through council. John and I have talked a little bit about that, so he's aware that that may happen. I'm waiting until after payroll gets paid out this week to understand where the cash balance is before I determine if that needs to happen and we run through that path. But I do want people to understand that is an important part of where we sit, is that while we've been very strong in giving and very strong in keeping most of the expenses low, we still have some, those short-term things that we're going to have to manage to a detail. And that's some of the things that I'm looking with Lorraine to help put some of that down in words to say, okay, what does it mean when we get to this or get to that? So I want to make everyone aware of that. the situations where we're at. If we do request the loan from the ESPT, I will put that in the messenger so everyone is aware of that. And then we would, I think in the past, we've said, if you've got some extra funds to put toward that, please let us, put it and just say ESPT repayment, and that will go into their proper account. So we'll be working on that all this year. There's, some other things as we look at the budget that I'll talk to you a little bit more, but we kind of wanted to give everybody a little bit overflow is that if you think about the church books as your checking account, it makes a little bit more sense, except we have a little savings account on the side, I guess. Julie?
I just have a question about something such as cemetery association.
Yes.
It shows that income is 100, paid out 200, negative 100.
I don't know why that is. I have to look at that. I question that too. Because
Okay.
typically what happens when we get cemetery in, we get it in, we put it in that account, it's an in and out.
Yeah, and I
So
think,
whatever comes in, we send out. So
and I think there was $200 that I got this year.
you
which
did,
looks
which
right,
was
but-
supposed to be right. So I don't know why
Okay.
that, I have to look at that.
Okay, and then my other comment would be, we have a lot of dedicated accounts. I think it's an overkill. My personal opinion, and I used to be treasurer many years ago here, and is that you have one memorial
Yeah.
account,
Mhm.
and then the bookkeeper keeps track of what a family wishes.
Mhm.
We have I don't know, there's so many altar flowers, and then we have geraniums, lilies, blah, blah, blah. No, that's supposed to be an in and out.
Yeah.
You get money, you get money in for geraniums
Mhm.
or lilies, that pays the bill for that.
Mhm.
So that should be an in and out and not a dedicated.
That's my fault.
Yeah.
because I haven't.
And
turned that
I fully agree with you,
Oh.
and I started to do a little of that, where, that's, I think, as we set for the new treasurer, cleaning treasurer, we will be cleaning some of these,
Yeah.
even some of the expenses ones are just, they don't make sense.
They don't, yeah.
So I'm also gonna try and clarify down what the expenses are. Because, if I looked and I say, okay, Grant, you would be property manager, but I want you to manage the budget. Well, does it make sense that he's managing 5 different accounts? No, they really should all be kind of merged into one. So I'm started to do a little cleanup. Now, beginning of the year is the best time to do that. So
Yeah, yeah.
I started a little bit. We'll be doing more of that through the first quarter. But yes, I totally 100% agree with you.
Okay, so, my personal opinion, and I mean, it doesn't mean anything if you don't want it to, it doesn't matter, but like the altar flowers, I would just move all of that into the general fund.
Mhm. Well, and I'll sit down with you and go through some stuff.
I would love to,
Yeah.
because it's just, all of that goes into the general fund, take it off the dedicated, because church is paying out that money as you get it in, so.
Right.
makes
Yeah,
more
there's some
sense.
stuff we have to hold for a little bit, and that'll go with the dedicated, because we don't get out as soon as we get it.
Correct, correct.
So, okay, yeah, great. I would,
Okay, yeah.
your expertise, and I'm sure Lorena will be happy to have somebody else do it and go, oh. So, but yeah, this year is really how do we clean out the financials to make everything very clear? And I think that not only helps us as whoever's doing the financials, but it also helps you as a congregation understand better where things are at. And just one thing, I do have a detailed budget, a detailed expense report, if somebody would like to see that. If somebody, I have it, I can email it to you. I did kind of figure out how to do it a little easier this year, so if you want that, let me know. I can send it out. So as we move out of 2025 and we go into 2026, the budget for 2026, what I did for the budget, items of note. One, I said the general operating budget was not increased. That was wrong. I took the amount that we got in and put it in the budget. So I assumed that we would have continual giving, which I didn't really want to do for the purpose of, so as you know, we've lost several members this year. And with loss of members also does lose giving units. So if we look at the losses in the past year and the giving units in the past year that have given, we actually will lose $5,000 in giving remedy, which is a fairly substantial amount. So when I did the budget, I thought I was keeping the budget the same so that we could not have that larger amount in there and we could manage to that. I didn't, but in all of that, that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. Couple of thoughts on that. I have been doing some analysis on the giving units for the congregation. And we have not done an overarching stewardship campaign in the last few years. We've kind of said some soft words that said, you know, if you're able to increase your giving, great, you know, we'd love to have you do that. So I put some plans down, and I went and detailed out the giving units that are still here, taking out the ones that we will lose, and put some percentages of increase around those. And we can recover that loss of giving with an average of 5 to 7% increase across the congregation. Now, does that mean I'm saying everybody needs to increase their giving 5 to 7%? No, I'm not saying that. I'm asking though for you to look at your situation. And if you have the ability to increase your giving, I am asking you to do that because that will help us at least then, not only, you know, get us to a point we can start to not rely on the ESPT as a support, but also will allow us to pay the large things of snow plowing bills or whatever may just come up in, oh my gosh, we have this, we have to figure out how are we going to pay it. And it allows us to actually then use the dedicated funds to do work like removing the trees which I didn't pull out of the dedicated funds this year. But we pulled the chairs, all those new chairs that are out on the Thursday night, and those came out of dedicated funds this year. They were from the memorials. So there are things that we have little projects that we could do if we have that flexibility to spend that dedicated fund. I'm not going to change what I budgeted. I thought about it after I was like, because I couldn't figure out why I was only $200. So in the past couple of years, I've been at a $5,000 to $3,000, $5,000 deficit in my budgeting plan. And I was at $250 and I couldn't figure that out. I believe that's because of the change in the budget that I made from the general offering. Now, I did in work of the specific ones with the intent that I was going to reshuffle a lot of the things. I did try to put a lot of the expense accounts closer to what they've been averaging for the past couple of years. So some of them dropped a bit, some of them increased. And the big increases that we see are going to be snow plowing. And I've had several people that will actually look at the snow plowing to see what can we do next year and not do that. So in August, September, we'll start to have those discussions about how do we get not having as big a snowplow bill as we had in the past. The second one is insurance. And Oscar has volunteered to help us look at that. And he's looked at the contract now. We moved forward with it because we really were kind of at a short term. But I think if there's someone else that would be willing to work with Oscar to look at the insurance and look at our options, I think that's another place that we are able to help reduce some of our expenses. And that comes up in November. So we have a little time on that one too. So other than that, I did not include a percentage increase. If that is determined, that actually will help the budget future, but I didn't increase it. I'm proposing, or the council has proposed a 5% increase on pastor salary. And that is important because we're still below some of the synod guidelines for costs or expense of pastor. So as we continue to increase that, it allows us to get a little closer. And this was a good year because the synod didn't increase their numbers at all. They didn't do a cost of living. So that 5% gets us a little closer to where we should be. So we wanted to maintain that. The other thing on salaries is that we proposed a $5 a Sunday increase for Lauren. As we looked to getting subs, we really were always in that range anyway, so we really should be paying Lauren that amount. And then the treasurer has now been with us or the bookkeeper has been with us for 2 years now, and so we'll be increasing her salary to 50 cents an hour. And those all fit with.
What about Barb?
Barb was increased last year.
She wasn't.
Yes. And then we, on the custodial side, Scott is still kind of floating in with hours to help us out, but we did in October, we did start a new custodial person. She has her own cleaning service. She's the mother of the treasurer, and so she's been coming in on a weekly basis, and I think Alrisha's been doing a great job and is well within budget for us, so we will continue with her on that service. Any questions at all on the budget, on the expenses, or anything for moving forward? I know there was a lot of words and a lot of hopefully not too confusing finance.
I think you just want to double check that personage security deposit. I don't know if that's accurate.
It is,
It is 39 for
Yeah.
the lease?
yeah, because there was, I think the dog lease got in there too.
All right,
I can go back and check, but I believe that,
3,900 seems high.
no,
No?
it was two, I think it was two.
All right,
No.
good,
We put it in as we got it.
good. And I was just making sure when we paid the last tenant out, that was taken out of that account.
We didn't have an account at the time when we paid the tenant, the
Ah.
last tenant out, so we added the
Then,
account with the
then
new
it's
one.
gotta be accurate.
So, yes,
Okay, got it.
so
Thank you.
that was one that, and thanks, Lizette, that's a good point. That $3,900, if they determine the mood, has to get paid out immediately, or when we, settle all of that. So just so everybody's aware of that, that's money we cannot touch. So,
Right, and we'll deal with that, that's the purpose of it. Also, with respect to insurance, having the newer roof on the property should certainly help with that. Had we the old roof, that old cedar shake roof, that would have been a huge detriment to getting renewal on insurance. So that's
they've got all that
awesome.
information.
But still, yeah, are there other vendors? So we're checking other vendors?
We believe, so last year, we should have just looked at this last year. Many churches had walked away from church mutual.
Mhm.
So we wanted to look and see what, because church mutual is basically a 10% increase every year.
Well,
So,
everyone's insurance on homes and
yeah.
every structure.
But
has gone
I think we
up.
need to do our due diligence.
Yes.
Due diligence to make sure that that is the appropriate place and we're spending the money appropriately, so.
Good.
Okay, any other questions on the finances? If not, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented, and then with the addition of approving the budget for 2026 moving forward.
I move we accept the expenses or the treasurer's report.
Okay, so a motion has been set and put forth to accept the treasurer's report. Is there a second on that?
Second, Liz Tobel.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Okay, that's good too. And Liz is moving to approve the budget. Do I have a second on that?
second that.
All in favor of approving the budget for 2026?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, great, thank you. Okay, so then I am actually also doing the Building Improvement Fund campaign report, which is on page 12. So we are ending into the last year of the campaign, so the campaign will be ending in April this year. There were 31 pledges and 24 have already completed, and the 7 that are still continuing, we're still seeing the money for that. And this year, the building fund, so as we talked about out of that dedicated fund, we did pay the final $7,000 to the SBT, so the roof is totally paid off at this point.
Awesome.
And then in addition to that, we've also been, as building fund money comes in, we've been giving 15% of that to support the Equipping the Saints, and to date, so this over the full effort, we've given them $68.71 to the Synod for that campaign. So that's a wonderful amount to the Synod also. And then the details that you'll see for that, also there's a very last page has detailed out giving by month for this year, or for the years in this year, and then things that have been paid out. And so, the only thing that I'm not sure, my numbers here says we still owe 11,000, but there's only 7,000 in the fund. I have to figure out why that doesn't match out. I noticed that later, so. Okay, and that is not on approval. So that is the end of the finance types of things. So next we move on to the Constitution ratification. So in November, we, as a congregation, approved the Constitution. Because it was a large-scale change, we are actually required to let it sit and then ratify it afterwards. So today, we will be ratifying it, which means that now we actually will be governed under the rules that are provided within the Constitution. There are constitutions on the table. There is a report about the Constitution on page something, on page 10. I think the clarification is that at the meeting, we did have an amendment that Liz has put forward, but we didn't have the full wording. That wording was presented in the newsletter, and it is provided here. So that will provide your update, and that is updated in the full Constitution as presented. So I would open a motion to ratify the Constitution that was as approved on November 9th. Got someone who'd like to move?
I so move.
Okay, second?
I second it. I'm just reading the last line of this.
Nope, that, we're not gonna deal with the little piece of paper yet. We
Okay.
need to ratify the Constitution as it was presented.
As presented.
As from the, yes, as so that the document that you have on your table is the document that we approved in November, along with that tentative approval on the
Right.
amendment that Liz provided the wording for right after the meeting. So
Right.
that is what we're approving.
I'm seconding that.
Okay. And so we have a motion and approve. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now at this point, we have ratified our Constitution that we have approved in November. So now I'm going to open the floor to Liz. So one of the, and I'm going to give a little background on this. So one of the things is I was doing the work with, so we have a team in the Senate that actually reviews all the stuff that you put in your Constitution to make sure that you're not walking outside of the guidelines of what they view as legal or working, or I don't know what you want to say, but they actually have a Senate lawyer. And so one of the things that they had concern with was this amendment that we put forth, that even though we were putting that amendment with the allowing the property team to manage things, that they said that legally the congregation has the requirement to approve any legal documents. The lease is a legal document. So that is something that every time we wanted to do anything with the lease, we have to have a congregational meeting, everybody sit down and say, yep, we're all good with that, and whatever. That's really not workable. So in the discussions with them, they did say that we could put a continuing resolution. And the continuing resolution, the difference between that and a bylaw is that the continuing resolution is time-bound, and it gives certain, just a limited set of guidelines. And it then is managed to that, and it really then, the congregation says, yes, for this amount of time, we're gonna take our authority and allow this group to do it. And that's really what we are looking to quote. So that little slip of paper that you have there is what we attempt. Now Liz had a change, so we have one little change to that. But I'm gonna let Liz, because Liz is actually gonna present this as a motion. But so Liz, I don't know if you wanna say more.
Yeah, so we have the bylaws now ratified, so those are set in stone. So what I am doing is I'm gonna make a motion to put in place a continuing resolution which would go, I don't actually think they go in the bylaws, like you have the numbering in here, I
Yeah.
really don't think they
Okay.
do. I think it's a resolution, which is it's in addition to the
Okay,
bylaws, so.
well, yeah,
So just have my motion reflect that I'm proposing a continuing resolution to this effect, that the Committee on Property Management be given the congregational authority to manage any leases of church property or delegated to a property management with oversight from the church council. Furthermore, the Committee on Property Management shall have the authority to spend or contract services up to $1,000 on emergency support needs. Any contractual agreements above $5,000 must be approved by the congregation. This continuing resolution will be in effect until December 31st, 2031. And then I would like to add, unless terminated by the congregation by proper vote prior. So it can be terminated if you don't want to do that. So, and the dollar amounts were discussed.
right. Yeah, so really, ideally, the property management would be able to execute something initially up to $1,000 to get a situation started. Then the council would need to get involved between $2,000 and $5,000 to make sure the appropriate funds are available. Over $5,000, that is really when we need to start saying, okay, we really at least need to get the congregation involved. So that's really where the thought on the dollar amounts were going.
Yeah, so that was my motion, and then you'll look for a second and then
Yeah.
have discussion.
Yeah, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So, is there a second on the motion that Liz has provided for Jerry or Jim? And, okay, so any discussions on that? So yeah, let's open this up for discussion, because this is a little, again, we're moving congregation responsibility to a small group of people. So-
Yeah, so for instance, say that there's a small plumbing leak over at the parsonage, I can get the plumber in there, I can, or church council can get the plumber in there up to $1,000. If it exceeds $1,000, then we can get the church council involved they can act pretty quickly up to $5,000. Anything beyond $5,000, say the whole septic shot, and we need to replace the septic or something like to that effect, then we will bring it to the congregation as a whole. So there's checks involved, and I think they make sense based on what might happen, what could happen.
Any discussion? Questions, comments? Jerry?
Because up to $1,000 on emergency funds, I would suggest to raise that to $2,000.
Yeah, I know, I kind of went with
Well,
that too.
the reason I went with 1,000 is because at this point, when I looked at some of the budget, and so we had just looked at a couple things, and I'm gonna step back now. Floating here because I haven't put this down to notes. We put together the property management committee document. As a council, we said 1,000, and then, some steps beyond that. So that's why I put 1,000 in there. I guess I have no problem going to the 2,000. It was really then also looking at what is budgetary and how many of those accounts could just take on 2,000 really quickly, or our expenses take on 2,000 quickly. If it was today or tomorrow, it might be an issue. And then in June and July, I wouldn't have thought about it. So I think it was really more of 1,000 is easy to cash flow out. 2,000 starts to step a little bit closer to not. But if you all believe 2,000 is the right number, I have no problem.
Well, and it's in an emergency situation. So if there's something going on where we need a plumber and there's something big that's leaking or it has to be spent, you better increase. $1,000 can be spent pretty quickly with today's contractors. That's kind of why I did question that amount too. I would rather see it up towards 1,000. Now, I would say that as the property manager, I don't want to be spending those kinds of monies without the council looking at what I'm spending it on anyways, because I just want to.
We were really trying to get that. I don't want somebody to say, can I spend the money because there's a problem going on? I don't want to have to be in the middle of that. That was really the intent, is that I don't want myself, the treasurer, pastor being called and say, hey, we got this problem, we got to fix it. Can I go ahead and do this? So whatever that amount is to get us out of that scenario is really what that needs to be.
Well, can I suggest that we would move it to $1,500? That gives them a little more.
Oscar?
With a good name, and I think St. John's has got a good name within the county paying its bills, most of these contractors that would be working for us in a situation like this would have the understanding that we would be good for our word. They are normally not asking for cash on the barrelhead when they walk into your building, if they're a professionally, licensed, insured contractor. So I don't, yes, of course, 2,000 would be nice, but I think having the strategy laid out provides that assurance that we will be good for any obligations that we incur after assessing the situation with expertise.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the thought behind this is if there's something going on, don't wait for somebody to ask if you can do it. It's just go ahead and do it. And then 1,000 is something that we felt we could float anywhere. After that is like, we would have to have discussions and not expecting to pay it right away. But if something's going emergent and it is getting expensive, we just have to figure out what we're gonna do. So 1,000, we don't have to think about. If it's 1,500, 2,000, whatever that number is what do we not have to think about to just get the work started,
Yeah, that's.
is really the intent.
So what you're saying is, something happens, plumbing or whatever it might be, the property management can just say, instead of calling you or calling pastor, calling council members, is get a quote and say, yeah, we need to deal with this, go ahead and do it. So
Yeah.
that's basically what you're saying. So it doesn't mean that we wouldn't pay the bill
Right.
eventually. It would just mean that if we get a quote for $1,200, yeah, go ahead and do it
Right.
without checking them first.
Right.
Okay.
And that's really, yeah.
That's
So
what it is.
it's really that intent.
Okay.
Oscar.
Most property managers, I think, would get several quotes if they felt in their heart that it was a borderline or questionable quote that the company was giving them. I mean,
Mhm.
most of us who own homes, property, when we're dealing with issues of that magnitude, look for expertise beyond just the one person that seems to surface on our computers.
Mhm.
And that's true. But if it's an emergency
Of course,
and you
of
might get
course.
someone local and
Of
just say,
course,
hey,
of
can you
course,
come in today
of
and
course.
take care of it? Yeah.
Right, a furnace repair would be the prime example. If
Yeah.
tenant doesn't have heat, so you gotta get it fixed.
Yeah, and that's the one that is probably outside that guideline, but we gotta get it going. So, yeah. You're right. And that unfortunately is,
A furnace repair could be 4,500,
Yeah,
so,
that may come up.
change
that
out,
may come
yeah,
up soon.
right.
Yeah, I had a pressure tank go and I had a flood basement.
Yep.
1,000 did not do it.
So,
Not even 1,500.
Right,
so 2,000 may at least get us started and half of a bill of 5,000, which then we can figure out where the costs go and
right.
try to get on a payment plan or whatever that is.
And again, as a property manager, I'm okay with that, because then the council can decide, is it all right to go ahead and change out the pressure tank or the furnace or, whatever. I can approve somebody to go in and do emergency stuff right away, but if something big's going on, let the council take a look at it too.
Stop the leak, contain the damage.
So are we leaving it at 1,000 or we're increasing it to 2?
Leave it at 1,000, I would say. I'm good with that.
Okay.
That's fine. You're right with that?
Any other discussion? And it's something that if we need to adjust it, because we found out something didn't work this year with it, then we just go ahead and adjust it. And they can be adjusted at any point in time with congregational meetings also.
And you had said, you had mentioned, the council can act pretty quickly.
Right.
I mean, you can work by email vote, you could do anything on a special meeting, like if the
right.
furnace is out and you guys gotta move quickly,
Right.
that's
We can-
fine.
Yeah,
We can turn it over fast.
Okay.
okay. So if there's no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, well, thank you. This has been a year to get that constitution and all the pieces. in
Nice
place,
job.
so-
All involved.
There are a few copies of the Constitution floating on the table if you'd like one. Take it. We can always print more. It's available on the St. John's Drive, so we can get to that. Okay, our next, moving forward is the nomination report, and I'm going to turn that over to Oscar.
As you've already heard, the nominating committee is composed of Judy Swanton, myself, Pastor, and Judy Brunt. And before we get into the report, I just want to take a minute of personal privilege and again add my thanks on behalf of a member, baptized, confirmed member of the body of Christ, to you, Judy, for all you have provided and your team, which has been the council members and all the other leadership people serving in this past year. Just a real joy to be able to be a member of this community and to thank you for your leadership and attention.
Appreciate that, thank you.
So anyhow, continuing on a word of privilege, as Pastor so aptly said, the study of Scripture is important and open to all of us, and we all carry our personal scriptures with us, and we refer to them, I'm sure, on a moment-to-moment basis. You all have a baptismal or confirmation passage of Scripture, as well as those that have been helpful in your life. And one of those is in Scripture. It says, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us," and as a result of the Word, we exist and have our being. I just want to reflect in 1973, I answered the door one day in our parsonage, and there's a young woman who was going to be serving on our community of faith, our Savior's Grace Lutheran Church in Howell, Michigan, and her name was Pat Law. She just traveled from Ohio. She completed her degree at Yale University and was studying to be a Lutheran pastor. And so she comes into our door and she says, "Oscar, what can I do to help?" Those were the first words that she ever spoke to Shirley and to me. "What can I do to help?" And so I said, "Well, that's really great." And so I said, "Well, you can pray for us and then keep asking me that question." And she did. And we celebrated our ministry together for that year. And the second year, she happened to be a woman. And in 1970, we were not ordaining women in our denomination until the very end of that year. And so she had to wait a year to get ordained. She worked in Alpena after she completed that second year with us in the county. She went on to serve, and now she serves as the bishop of St. Paul, Minnesota. And she is our bishop, serving right there, hosting the clergy in that synod and all of the other deacons and everyone else as they pray for what's going on in St. Paul and Minneapolis. Kelly Kraft, our daughter, went to Augustana College. Her roommate, Jan Rome, is the pastor of the church where the governor of Minnesota worships with his wife and children. So what's going on in this country, in this world, is something that affects each and every one of us. And so as I lay in my bed this morning, trying to get the courage to get out in the cold, we don't heat our upstairs. And I remember that Judy told me yesterday that her sister, Debbie, was in the confirmation class with Alan. And Alan was the first person Shirley and I met as we were looking for a place to worship and to celebrate our faith life. And I thought of Alan and Debbie, thought of myself, thought of you, and I thought of Jesus and what he said, especially what he said when he came back from the crucifixion. He was there by the seaside, and the men were out fishing. Some of them were, and some of them were making a charcoal fire. And he said to them, "Be not afraid. Be not afraid." And as I thought of that, I said, you know, that's really where we have to move forward, trusting and not being afraid. As a small congregation, we sing a hymn, Jim, have no fear, little flock, have no fear, little flock. We are a little flock. And there'd be a lot of reasons for us to get timid or afraid, but you haven't been that way over the years, nor do I see us being that in the future either. So we have to remember who we are, whose we are, and that we're not alone. So we're pleased and privileged to have women and men who have, not many men on this list to be officers. My wife pointed that out to me yesterday. She said, look, Oscar, there aren't any men on this. And I said to myself, well, God knows. There were the women who were not afraid to stand at the foot of that cross. The men had run. They were not there. Well, one or two. But by and large, they weren't there. It was the women who went to the tomb after he was dead and buried. It was the women. That's when the men really ran away, because they really thought, boy, they're going to come and get us, straight us up. So for all of those leaders and the pictures that Nancy provides and make this a living document in another sense, really appreciate it. And the folks that are nominated to serve this next year are listed on page 20. We appreciate all of these women. And Judy Swanton, pastor, and we offer this as our slate of officers for you to consider. For the officers, it says who they are. I'd have you stand, but most everybody here knows who you are, so you don't have to stand. And the terms that you're up for, are there any questions that you have?
So I'll just, before you start about questions, can I have a motion to approve the slate of officers and representatives in committees as presented on page 20?
I'll make that motion to approve that.
Second. So just a note, with the Constitution, we did change the positions to be a 2-year commitment with then allowing someone to kind of go as far as they wanted. As we discussed, the treasurer, something that people think is ugly. Lorena and I had a long discussion about that. And I said, you know what, we can do it a year, because a year will give me an opportunity to split what I've been doing as president and what I've been doing as treasurer, and kind of getting some things cleaned up and allowing her to help and put some of that down and document it. Does it make sense? Is it something, she says, I don't have an accounting background. And that's the person I'm looking for, because if someone who says they don't know accounting can understand what's going on in a daily basis and help us document it, then it becomes not a problem for anyone else. Now, Lorraine will have the option in a year if she'd like to continue, but we said, you know, if you could continue for a year would be great, because that helps us get things in set. So I do appreciate that, Lorraine. I know we talked about a lot of our similarities in our church life and family life, and so I think it was a good conversation. So that's the comment I had on that, why that one is a 1-year commitment versus the other is 2. And then you also see that we did have the Synod meeting that we also approved. So it's really the whole slate that we're approving. So any other questions, comments?
We should note that Chris Captain is now serving as vice president.
Oh, yeah, Chris is, yeah. And I open it up at this point. Is there someone who would like to offer themselves as a candidate? Either for one of the positions or an additional member at large? It is now the time to do that.
I'm sorry, Pastor, what did you say?
I just said that one of the changes in the nomination report from what it has been is that Chris before that served as a member at large, and she's agreed to be vice president.
Okay.
Yeah, and Nancy was kind of focusing as vice president and secretary, so she's taking the secretary role, and Chris will be moving on.
Okay.
And Shirley's gonna stay with us to be as that member at large, the additional one. And council does allow us to have up to 12 people at a percentage of the number of people in the congregation, which we're not exceeding at this point. So, okay, so if there's no further discussion, then I will put the motion to a vote. All those in favor of the nomination report as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that has passed. All right, so now we are moving into the reports section of this, and I'm going to start with the benevolences, which is on page 6, and I'm doing this for Chris. Chris has got a family obligation in Michigan, or Minnesota this weekend, so she said, can you do that? So in 2025, we continue to support the Hope Center and the Cedar Springs Ranch with financial contributions. We had planned a couple other financial contributions which got postponed at the end of the year. So we're going to talk about that moving forward. But you'll see that in 2025, this is the schedule of things that we did. We were very active. As Pastor said, we did the school lunch in February. As a council, we decided that's not the best time because February is coming into Lent and Lenten services, and it's not always the best weather. And so we've decided to move that into the fall when the teachers probably wanted a little bit more as they come into school and then need a break shortly after they've been there. So, and then March, we had some Lenten focuses about focusing on your neighbors, and we'll talk about that in moving forward. April, we focused on the music fund, and as you are aware that Jim has been helping us provide a wonderful music ministry here at Foot Ballad and a wonderful part of the ministry. So if you if you enjoy it and want to help support it, that is a special fund out there that will then keep them in his music ministry moving forward. But we will focus on that. We did focus on it in April. Again, we supported the troops. We've done Hope Center collections. One item of note, the 4th of July parade parking is one thing that I think is undervalued at times by us maybe, but not the community. The community is so appreciative. We open the building, we have bathrooms, we allow people to sit in here, we provide water. On a hot day or a rainy day, it's a nice respite for people to just get out of there, to be good. But on the other side of things, it is an extremely profitable for us with the parking, for not only us, but for the cemetery. If you're looking for one thing to do to help the church as be available that day, help us park cars, help us sit in here, greet people, watch the bathrooms to make sure that there's paper towels and toilet paper in there. We do get a large crowd through here throughout the day through the parade. And it is something that not only is it good for us and good for the community, it does put us out there, it puts our word out there. It gives us a face in the community. It's one of those things that doesn't take a lot of effort, but it's a big reward on the positive side of things. So our benevolence there is really keeping the church open, allowing people to come in, take a break, use the bathrooms, and have a good day of that. We've done the school kits, and as you saw this year, Kelly's been transitioning to that from Judy, so we look to do that again next year. And then again, the outreach for Hope Bike Ride, which Pastor and Jim were gone this year, but they hopefully are going to expect to do that again next year, so we'll see that. Now, benevolence is moving into 2026. One of the things you're going to see, hopefully in February's messenger, because February and March are that Lent time, we're going to focus on our neighbors. And in saying that, is we weren't able to put cash funding to some of the local things like the food pantry that we did this year. So we're going to highlight them. They're going to be at the beginning of the year. We're going to have food drives through Lent, and so we'll do an active ministry to the food pantry. And then in March, we're going to do the same thing with the free clinic. So the free clinic in Oconomowoc, they have a lot of things that they look for donations, like Band-Aids, aspirins, Tylenol, those types of things, little over-the-counter things that we can then, in a support to them, we can provide. So you'll be seeing those highlighted in February and March as that whole love our neighbor, love God, love creation flow of things. And then in August, I think we are looking in August to set up a time frame to go to make breakfast at the Hope Center again. And we'll get more information out of, we're gonna be setting that date pretty soon. So we'll get more information about that, so you can put that on your calendar, because that also, it's a nice event where you can go and see the faces of the people that need help and are struggling. And providing them a nice warm meal and ability to have a good meal at the start of their day, and then as they move forward. So the Hope Center is a nice place to do that. So we are getting on their calendar for August. So that is the benevolences report for this year and then ongoing into next year. Okay. The next report, Nancy, is worship.
Who says that?
Just start with a little housekeeping here. Yeah, if you've got a pre-printed name badge, just drop it in this basket here, and I will put it back upstairs for the next time we have a name tag Sunday. Also, starting today, we're, as you recall from last fall, we're doing a new system this year on getting people to volunteer to be worship assistant on a Sunday. We're doing it as a sign up kind of volunteer for a Sunday, or 2 or 3 or 4 situation. So the schedule for summer is being started today. So I'm going to pass this around, look at the dates, figure out when you can help, if you're willing to help, when you can do it, and sign up. And this will be collected on Easter Sunday, and then I will work on the schedule and have it out hopefully by the beginning of May for the summer. Then after that, we'll look into the fall. So we can start that. All right. As in the past, I'm referring to our committee as the WOMU committee, Worship, Music, and Hospitality. When I started with this, the first thing I want to do is thank all of the people who have volunteered and acted as worship assistants throughout the year as readers, communion assistants, and ushers. So appreciative, and if you can give me dates to do it, and I don't have to figure out who's assigned to that day, I love that. So please feel free to do that. That really helps out. And I want to thank Jim Edgar for also for his leading our music and providing wonderful music for our worship. And Lauren for another year of wonderful piano accompaniment. I could just listen to her play piano all day long. I want to encourage everybody to please give me feedback on anything. Don't be afraid to come and tell me anything that you want to see different, or that you don't like, or that you really do like. Because the more feedback I have, the better I can tailor things to make our worship better. But if I'm flying blind, I'm going to just go with what I like. And that may or may not be what everybody else likes. So all feedback, greatly appreciated. And of course, I would love to have more members on the worship ministry. Currently, we're meeting at 2 o'clock on the second Wednesday of the month, but that is a fluid date, and we can adjust it to accommodate anybody else that might want to join the ministry. So if anybody out there is so moved, please talk to me. We talked a little bit about altar flowers. Currently, the system is that I'm just reminding you that if you are so inclined as to provide altar flowers or plants for
to adorn the altar for 1 or 2 or 3 Sundays. The slips are in the back. I think they're still in that, by that podium area. You can just fill them out and put them in the offering plate or turn them into the office. And we will get some flowers. Plans for the coming year. Lent is coming up fast, boy. Ash Wednesday is February 18th. So that's what, 3 weeks from now? Not long. We will again be having the soup and sandwich suppers, followed by a devotional service. The soup and sandwich suppers will start at 6 and the devotional service will be at 6:30. The sign-up sheet for the providing the soup and sandwiches is now up on the bulletin board. We will again have all of our summer services will be out in the pavilion, and we will have Thursday evening services again this year. One in Christ Sunday will be the second Sunday in September, bringing us all back together. And we will evaluate how this new worship assistant sign-up thing works at the end of the year and see where we go from there. I'll let Jim in a minute speak to what's going on with music. So now I'll go to hospitality. And again, many, many thanks to all of the people who have brought coffee fellowship goodies and food for the freezer throughout the year, and our Luther bread bakers. The fact that we can offer this homemade, really good tasting bread instead of those dry, pasty wafers for our communion is absolutely wonderful. I will remind you, we do have the pre-portioned whole wheat flour in the freezer, so you don't have to buy a whole bag of whole wheat flour to just make one set of Luther bread rounds. And thanks much to Nancy Coots for doing our table decorations for us. She always does such a really great job. Much appreciation to Megan, she's not here, she's still our Mount Maru person, so she and Barb are handling that, Barb, our office manager. Barb keeps our display pretty well updated, and she and Megan are working on trying to figure out how to simplify the ordering or purchasing process for the coffee. We may need to be looking into some sort of, what do I want to say, online way to pay if you're purchasing coffee here, because not everybody these days comes with a checkbook or cash. As you realize, got part of the way through the year last year, the 4 council persons were getting a little bit, what do I want to say, spent in having to cover one Sunday a month for the coffee fellowship. So we turned it into a make yourself at home kind of coffee fellowship, inviting everybody. If there's a host signed up, that's great. We so love that and appreciate that. But if there isn't, we invite everybody and anybody who's willing to go into the kitchen and pull something out of the freezer or, set stuff up for coffee fellowship after church. I'm usually here, and between me and Barb, the office manager, has offered to step in when I'm not here. We will have the coffee set up ready to be, if nothing else, just turned on. So you don't have to worry about that. There will always be coffee, and there's usually juice and water in the refrigerator. But if nobody sets out the food, there may be Sundays without food. So I'm inviting everybody and anybody to make yourself at home in the kitchen and set out stuff for coffee if there's no host. So just to recap, we didn't have a family potluck this year, so we had our potluck during this annual meeting. And in the coming year, we're still talking about how we want to do Easter, if we still want to do the continental potluck. But we will definitely have a potluck when we come back together on One in Christ Sunday. And if we don't have a family Christmas potluck, we will have one again for the annual meeting in 2027. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Nancy.
Any feedback from anybody? Anybody want to say anything?
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do, Nancy.
Yeah. I would like to point out, because she's behind the scenes a lot, but Nancy is an anchor of our congregation. And, you know, anything comes up at the last minute, she fills in so many ways. She is just one of the people we always know we can rely on. So let's just give her some applause for all the unseen things.
What I didn't mention was, when I was going through looking for pictures of Alan to put up for yesterday's service, I came across membership directories from the past. So I laid them out there because I thought people might like to look at some of those pictures because they're kind of cool.
And maybe.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, I think we should all pull out the ones with Julie and.
Hi, good
You're next.
morning, afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm Jim Edgar, I'm the choir director, married to the pastor. I wanted to tell you who has been involved in choir this year. I won't make you stand because I think everybody knows you. Shirley Kraft, Kelly Kraft, Olivia Kuzinski, DDS, Nancy Barr. And you'll notice a lot of these people, Shirley's on the council. She does a lot of stuff. Kelly is doing more things with, these are very involved people. Nancy Barr, Renata Herrera, who I'll mention in a minute. Kaylee Kozak, she's the one that does a lot of solos. Wonderful voice and brings a lot. Judy Runt, of course, our council president. Nick Lynn, she sings with the opera. Ian, who you remember is a relatively new member. Me and Oscar Kraft. People might not know this, but I told Oscar that he was in choir. I didn't ask him. His wife was in choir. I said, why don't you come up too? And that's how he got in. I do want to acknowledge, and people that give to the music fund, I don't send a card to because I never know who they are. People just say this came in, and I don't know. But if you haven't received a thank you note from me, it's just because I see the donations to the music fund come in, but I don't know who it is. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank whoever has in the past and may in the future donate to that music fund. It does provide us with the drummer, the cornet player, paid singers to keep the program vibrant and alive. And, so I thank you for anyone who's donated. I think it's a good investment. Part of that is I was ill. We were gone on vacation. I was ill a couple of times last semester, and Renata, who is trained to do this, actually just was able to step in and direct the choir and have the choir day. I don't know if you realize how important it is to me that if we schedule a choir and we're going to have it, that the choir does support the ministry here at the church on that day. And she was able to do that for us twice and take a rehearsal when I had to be gone. So I just thank you. I thank her for her service in that regard. Of course, Lauren is our engine, and we can never thank her enough for being part of that. So I write in my opening paragraph, one of the special times in choir is rehearsal before church and practice after. Rehearsal before church is when everybody gets together. They haven't seen each other for a while. So you might hear a couple things from the balcony when before worship, after we're done singing. And that's just because everyone's happy to be there. The sound that comes out of people during worship grows a lot from those times, especially the time before on a Sunday morning where people are happy to be together and I think what the people of the choir, when you hear them singing, it's just joy that's coming out and the mood for the day and hoping to be another take on the gospel and the readings for the day. So, thank you. It's an utter joy to be doing this.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to property report, which you'll find on page 15 and 16. Grant and Scott have provided a summary of what some of the major work that was done here. The thing that Grant you missed was there was an elevator issue this year.
No, yeah, forgot about that.
Yeah, so there was an elevator power issue that was also on the list of, it was done at the same time as the sign up by the road, because you had an electrician and you did a wall. So would either of you like to step up and provide any other additional comments?
No. No, my part is written in the report.
And so, and appreciate the work that both of you do is keeping things clean, moving forward, identifying issues and everything of that thing. So keeps our building and our lawn looking wonderful. Now we'll get the snow plowing figured out next year and be moving forward. Okay, Pastor, youth ministry.
The main part of youth ministry this past year was the conclusion of the confirmation program. We got 4 confirmation students, Caleb and Addie Rowe, Ava York, and Vivian Novobilski. And it's, I think most of you know that one of the changes in running a confirmation program is that most programs, like when we grew up, were set up to help, young, emerging young adults to take all the Bible learning they've had through Sunday school week after week and through their childhood, and then start wrestling with the questions of what it means to be a Christian in today's society. And most of the materials that you find for that age group are still in that realm. But our church is not unique in the fact that most of the young people that come into confirmation know very little about the Bible. They have a clue about what's going on at Easter and Pentecost, Sunday school, and the various churches. Some of our students were here all the time, and they had some Sunday school here, some Sunday school there. All of them, I think, were supported at home, which has made a big difference. But so we spend like 2/3 of an 18-week section, just moving through the Bible, because you have to know the stories. The stories are the rock of who we are, and then from the stories you can wrestle with what it means to be a Christian today. But I found this there. Augsburg Fortress has a new Bible study for young adults that was wonderful, and it has a video component in it, and it gives students a way of interacting, with the stories, and they give you a really nice sweep of the whole Bible. So you have like a little snippet about, say, the creation story at the beginning, and I thought, well, that's not very long. It's like about 5 minutes or so, and it's kind of combinations. There's some animation and some video in there. And then the next week you have that video, and then the next piece, the Exodus story. And then the next week you have the Genesis story, the Exodus story, and they build it. And every week you have this, and so the students get the sweep of the Old Testament and the sweep of the New Testament. And then it comes with like a workbook, and they do listening. It was very cool. Like, you would read the story twice, and then they would react to it. So it was interactive, and it was good. It was a wonderful way to just move swiftly, give that overview. So that was wonderful. One of the best things besides that, that we did this year was also in terms of service projects. We've done this before, but this year I think that we were just more proactive. Where a big part of the service projects was learning to do the work of the church, right? Learning to be worship leaders, learning to read, learning to do the ushering jobs. And each of the students had their preferences, what they wanted. Of course, ringing the church bell is always the best of all. And so what happened is that they were required to do some of that for one of the 6-week sessions. And now we have these trained worship leaders. There was a time where whoever was signed up to be usher wasn't there. And, usher is really important. There's the candles, there's the bell and everything. And then, the Novovilskis walked in and they said, "What do you want me to do, Pastor?" And I thought, because that's 2 right there. And then the Bolas came after. So anyway, it's been a wonderful gift, and it's fun to watch them. And when you see them leading like that, Ava, oh my gosh, doing the reading, Caleb and Addie. So be sure to talk to them about how important it is that they're there, because some of them, are, they have they have parents who live in different homes, and so they have complicated lives. So when they're here, it's wonderful, and it's nice to know. I can't tell you how important it is, I think, for these young adults to know that they have a church home. Like this is their church home. This is where they belong. It doesn't matter how often they're here or not here. When they're here, this is where they belong, and that's a sense that those kids really need, going into high school. So anyway, I have so much fun working with them, and I also fully appreciate, I say in here, the parents who did a lot of energetic rescheduling to make it happen. I mean, with the way children are booked these days, they were committed. That was a ministry in itself, just to make that happen. And so I truly appreciate that.
So the next is the cemetery report, which I'm not going to do anything about because this cemetery meeting will be in the over in your Genesis room after this meeting. But just so you know, on page 18, the financials are noted. So if you're looking for the financials, they're included in the report.
And if anyone has any questions about that at all, they can contact me.
Yeah. So moving on to the ESPT report, which is on page 19. John has become bluish this week, so he's not here. So I said I would present the ESPT report. I think the notes, specifically the distributions, there were a couple distributions that the ESPT did cover the confirmation retreat for the youth. And then they did expend out money for the sound system improvements that happened this year. On the income side, the balance of the loan, as I already stated, was returned. So that has been put back into the ESPT funds. And then you'll see the details of what happened here. I can't answer any questions, so. Sorry. Okay, well, we got a little longer than I wanted today, but that's okay. I think it was because we really needed to get into a couple things that were really a little bit deeper. Thank you everyone for attending and staying and being supportive of us all. With that, I will open for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I so move.
Second? I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and then we're going to close with Jim leading us in the doxology.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all people here below. Praise Him above you, heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.
All right, thank you all.
Good job, Judy.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Judy. Good job.
Hey,
Oh, here.
Still 6-2?
Yeah. Used to be 6-3.
Yeah. What happens? I
Had
used to
some,
be taller too.
So did I.
Yeah.
A lot.
Oh, yeah?
Well, not quite a tall.
Oh.
Gravity's the son of a.
Well, I gave you a Sunday free. I thought.
this was the big thing. I dropped Nick off. For some
Even
reason,
though
I was
she's
thinking
not
of
responsible.
dropping him off at 8:30 and I
Doesn't hurt
needed
to know
service.
what's
I'm like,
going
wait a
on.
minute.
Yeah.
I went to put the directions in and
So you've
said,
been doing all right?
10:15. That's
And
wrong.
supposedly next
Oh,
month,
yeah, I needed to really
we'll
be
go
at
back
7:30.
on
Okay, I don't know, I
Plan
Planned that out real well. Well, you got your
I
meeting.
Is that
Yeah,
something
I
that
mean,
we
the
can
important
do
part,
for her?
right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, and I
So,
played the
I'll have
service.
a calendar.